welcome to another edition of Real Estate Investor Talk. And I'm sitting here today with John Smit. Now, many of you know John Smit as our Springbok captain that lifted the World Cup in 2007. Tell us first of all about your on-field achievements. I mean, it's magnificent. Winning the World Cup is incredible.
Yeah, it does. I suppose that's one of the memories that does stand out in 2007. I was pretty fortunate. I matriculated in '96, which was a year after the game became professional, after South Africa beat New Zealand to win our first World Cup. And a huge amount of excitement. The game changed and became professional. So I was fortunate to be in the first generation of professionals from straight after school. So I guess in my days they were still trying to pretend to do study and play professionally. It wasn't very successful at the time. And then eventually I made a decision to have a full go at the rugby and see where it led me. So by the time I was 22, I was playing for South Africa, which was such an honour. I never thought it would last, for as long as it did. But then I managed to play for 15 years. My last game almost 3 years ago now, to the actual month. So very fortunate to have played for so long with so many great players and have so many good memories.
So if we start looking at rugby players like yourself in your career, you were certainly a high income earner. And a lot of sportsmen, we've seen, celebrities, that kind of stuff, when they finish their careers, they kind of lose everything. Tell us a little bit about your sort of investment journey while you were in rugby and what you've learned and what you could maybe impart to other players.
Yeah, I think I was fortunate. I managed to play for a long time, and in that period I played for South Africa for a long time, and so my earnings were very high within my peer group. Those earnings substantially higher now with the way the game's going and broadcasting, and so players now earning more as well, which is fantastic. The sad reality is that nor I nor these guys now that are earning a lot more still have the ability, even if they play financially unbelievably well, to stop working at the age of 35 if they're lucky enough to get there and play golf 3 times a week and go for coffees every second day. So it's a very, very critical time, and I suppose a critical phase in that, if you're lucky, 10-year professional gap to be a rugby player. I think the big push from us and here at the Sharks, and certainly from my tenure, has been to push this balance of having a life that runs parallel to your playing career, that doesn't necessarily interrupt your ambition of becoming a Springbok, but certainly assists you from when the rugby journey comes to an end. So education, networking experience, whether it's a trade, facilitating what that area of interest is for a player that he might move into. It might be teaching, you've got 10 years to prepare. And all of this is really important in terms of being able to think of what to do after rugby. The difficulties financially, which I think everyone experiences, is that to try and find a job that pays what rugby plays is reasonably challenging, especially if you've come from a very high earning base.
So you've introduced this new program. It's called the Impact Rugby program, and I've been privileged to be able to be part of this program. Tell us a little bit about the objective, because I think there's been some successes. Some of the guys have invested in businesses, some have invested in property and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Tell us about the thinking behind it.
Well, I think I guess we all learn from our own experiences, and you get thrust upon this lifestyle, which really is a fairy tale. It's not the real world. Being a professional athlete is, it's amazing, and we love it, and we've dreamt about it our whole lives. But it's not. It creates a very false pretense of what the world is about. So Impact really is a program that will encourage education, will encourage networking and the ability for players to use their value and in their profile of what they're busy creating while playing rugby in this country to their advantage as well. And perhaps the player's intention is to apply for a trade. Cars might be his passion, and that might be his vision afterwards. Whatever it is, you need to find and identify that, and not only that, we also have to educate them on what do you look for when you're buying a house? What do you need to get a bond? And what are the criteria? Sound financial advice all the time. If we can make a success out of impact will be the thing that they remember most, rather than the money that they earned from playing at the Sharks.
So I think the earlier you start to invest, the better for you. And tell us a little bit about your personal experiences investing in business. And I know you've done also property. Tell us a little bit about that.
Probably made as many mistakes as I made good decisions from an investment point of view. And we joked about it earlier, but you actually don't know how well you've invested until you stop working, until you're 60, 65, whenever you decide that it's time. Only then will you really know whether the decisions you made were the right ones. My career while playing, I suppose in hindsight it's one of the lessons, but if only I'd known then what I know now. And that's, I guess, what we're trying to avoid with our younger generation. I did the usuals, the coffee shop, which cost me an enormous amount of money. I, with my passion for cars, I got involved in the car dealership. That was a colossal mistake, and yet I managed to do them early enough, sort of before the age of 25, 26, where the financial impact probably wouldn't have been as great as if you'd made those mistakes at 35, 40, when your incoming potential is now gone and now you've lost all your money. So it's I guess would I take those things back? Probably not. I learned a hell of a lot about people and how to deal in business and how to go about doing the proper checks and going around the proper procedure of entering into a business. And so I learned a hell of a lot of that. Expensive lessons, but they certainly were lessons that get ingrained into your mindset when it comes to business and investing. Where I probably had the least amount of conflict or failure was with real estate, and I was fortunate. I started in 97, was my first year as a professional, earning peanuts. I think if I remember right, it was 2,300 Rand a month. Wow. And that made me a pretty big deal at first year. So I had a really unbelievable sound system in my car. It's the first thing I ever bought, a great investment. And so the journey continued. But I still remember buying my first house here in Durban North, and I stretched myself a little bit, but it was in 2000, I think, late 2000, and that was the property boom. And it worked so well, and so that's sort of where I just then got drawn to property and did one or two developments with some friends as well, and all those worked out. And then we would build a little consortium between 2 or 3 players and buy an apartment up the north coast and wait and turn that around. And so all these things worked really, really well for me. I mean, even now, I suppose currently one of the best things that I did while playing at Saracens was buy a property in the UK as well. And that in itself, I suppose, has been a phenomenal investment.
Let's talk a little bit about now your career at the Sharks, because now you got off the field, and I think not many people would move into a leadership position where you moved in. Tell us first of all, how's your 3-year journey been? I know it's been tough on with the playing field. There's some successes, losses, as you say, in life. It's up and down. Tell us your 3-year journey in terms of how that transformation.
It's more of a roller coaster ride than a journey, to be fair. And I can't believe it's been 3 years. I'll never forget 3 years ago, lying on a couch, playing for Saracens, watching TV and the phone with Mr. Saad calling, asking me about this job. I honestly believe that someone was pulling a prank on me. I guess you never quite know what's being offered to you. I was quite intimidated, whether or not I could do the job, because it's a big job of a big company and a public company as well. But I had such a passion for the team and the brand, and I knew that it needed help as well. So I naively said yes after much deliberation, and it's. Like I said, the first year was hectic, because I had to literally learn every single day. And I still have. I've made mistakes and continue to do so. I just try and make sure that I'm making less of them per annum going forward. But it's one where I don't think I've ever learned so much in such a short period of time as I have in the last 3 years. I would have believed that dealing with people is probably a strength of mine, but it is so exacerbated when you're in a position of leadership like this, because the buck always stops at you. I mean, I've always been a captain of a team. I've never been a coach that actually drops a person. So firing someone, for example, that was is a responsibility that took some time to understand. Certainly affected how one sleeps at night as well, because you're affecting people's lives. And you have to do so for the benefit of the business and the group and those that remain within it. So there's been a lot of difficult lessons that I've had to learn very fast in the last 3 years. I suppose my approach here has been to implement a substantial amount of change in terms of how the business operates, and certainly what the culture of the team itself will be, because they do work sort of separately from each other. As much as the business is relying completely on the success of the team, that's obviously the big driver. But this is also a team here of staff as well that are also quite affected in morale and sort of spirit-wise by how the team does as well. So they are connected to a degree emotionally, but I guess the business is reliant on the rugby working. And ironically, in this business, because of what rugby does to our emotions as South Africans, you could win Super Rugby and lose 100 million rand a year and you'd be an unbelievably successful CEO. Or you could make 100 million rand and come last and you'd be stoned in public. You know? The waiters poisoning your food at a restaurant. So getting that balance is quite important and will be. In terms of the future, I think I've had a similar approach. I've tried to put in place things, and the changes that I've made are that can continue, that are more based in terms of looking at success over the long-term future than just my being here. So, and like I guess the way I captained, I always wanted people around me to understand that they were leaders themselves, and that it's not reliant. A process is not reliant on one person, and hopefully that's the case. Time will tell. There is a significant amount that has been done, and the proof of all that will come in the next 2 to 3 years, I think.
Great. Leave us some parting shots just on John Smit's success philosophy.
I suppose it's an uncomfortable thing to talk about in terms of success because, I suppose most people who are driven and competitive, tend to always get hung up on the things that they get wrong. And I was like that, especially as a young captain. I would be more worried about what people said that was negative than about the positive that was happening. But I think the advice that I would have is to understand that there are going to be bumps along the way. And the trick is to not get hung up on the bumps, but to understand them, draw from them what you can, and make sure that you don't drive over the same bumps in the next time you go through that process. So for me, success is not something, there's no end point to it. I mean, it's not like, okay, you're successful. Like I said, just like investing, we could say one thing, and I talk about the future of the next 2 or 3 years being the fruits of what's being done. That's also up for debate. We have to wait for those 2 or 3 years to happen. So don't get hung up too much on the bumps. Learn from the bumps and see success as that goal that is forever just moving along. Because if you work towards a point and you get there, you haven't thought enough about what's coming next. And so keep planning ahead. Keep thinking about staying ahead of the game. Keep looking forward, and don't get too hung up. As much as people have a lot to say about him, but Peter de Villiers is our coach from 2008 to 2011. Said many things that were profound to us, and a lot of them made us laugh, but we enjoyed him. And one of the things he said to me, he said, the more you look behind you, is the longer it'll take for you to move forward. You sort of always move in the direction that you're looking.
Wise words. John, thank you very much for the opportunity. There's been some really great insight. Thank you very much again, and good luck for the Sharks going forward.
Thank you. Anytime. Go on.
Thanks, John.